Today we are interviewing Scott Ambler, Vice President, Chief Scientist of Disciplined Agile at the Project Management Institute. Scott is the co-founder of Disciplined Agile, which was acquired by the Project Management Institute back in August 2019. The DA Toolkit is the world's only complete Agile body of knowledge that provides straightforward and practical guidance to help individuals, teams, and enterprises choose their way of working in a context-specific way. Furthermore, he is the creator of the Agile Modeling and Agile Data methods. Scott has also co-authored several books, including Choose Your Wow, an executive guide to disciplined Agile delivery, refactoring databases, Agile modeling, and the elements of UML 2.0 style. Scott, thank you for accepting our invitation. It is our great pleasure to have you as a guest and discuss your experience.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here.
Scott, you hold a corresponding bachelor's degree in computer science and commerce. You have a master's of information science from the University of Toronto. Can you tell us more about what motivated you to focus your education in this area?
Yeah, so when I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I went to, I went to the University of Toronto, and the way they work there is the first year is set up so that way you can take courses and sort of figure out what you want to do. And I luckily took a computer science course because I loved it from high school. But when I was in high school, they told me that there'd be no computer jobs, and this was the early '80s. So they told me there'd be no computer jobs, and but I loved computers, so I took computer science, and then I learned that there might actually be a few jobs in computers out there. So I did the specialty in computer science, and then I also took commerce because I still didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I figured I'd better, expand my horizons. And then I went off for a couple of years and worked in some insurance companies and banks. Toronto, there's a lot of financial stuff in Toronto. And I decided to go back to school for my master's degree. And I went to the information science school and focused on, at the time, human-computer interaction, but it's now known as design or user experience design. That community keeps changing the terms every few years, but it's basically a UX design focus.
And looking back at your professional experience, like you mentioned, you started your career as a consultant. What would you say were the primary challenges you encountered when starting with your career?
Yeah, so a lot of it is being useful and being perceived as being useful and valuable, and being able to sell yourself and to sell your services to these various organizations. And I did have a background for a few years at a full-time job, but then when I graduated the second time from university, I struck out as an individual consultant. I was teaching. I delivering training workshops as well as professional services around software development for the most part, and how to improve it and how to get better. And that's really where my focus on process came from. I was very interested in that pretty much from the very beginning. And so I helped organizations understand and I help them to get better and to understand this process stuff, and to really sort of improve their way of working.
And back in 2006, you joined IBM Rational as Chief Methodologist for IT. While working at IBM, you led the development of the Disciplined Agile delivery methodology. This included processes development, courseware development, training, and mentoring, and eventually writing the Disciplined Agile delivery book with Mark Lyons, which was published in 2012. Can you tell us more about this experience and the process of writing Disciplined Agile?
Yeah, so as I said, I was always interested in process, and I was always interested in how can we be more effective and how can we get better at what we do. And so when I was at IBM, myself and my team and business partners, we were working with organizations around the world, and Mark Lyons being one of the business partners at the time. We were working around the world, helping organizations to understand Agile and Lean, often at scale, and to improve their way of working. And we started noticing a lot of common techniques and issues and strategies. And at the time, nobody else had really put together any sort of coherent and cohesive definition of how to do agile software development from beginning to end. And that was basically the motivation behind Dad, is that we realized that all these organizations were struggling and still are in many ways, but they needed some advice. But at the same time, we also noticed that everybody's doing agile differently, because there are different people in different situations facing different contexts. And so a prescriptive approach, a one size fits all approach that you see in many of the agile frameworks, really wasn't realistic, and it really wasn't going to help. Yeah, we could have put something together, and yes, it would have been successful, but we really wanted to do something better. We really wanted to up our game, and that's where Dad, Discipline Agile Delivery, came from. Was this context-driven, choice-focused, non-prescriptive approach to agile and lean software development, and then that eventually evolved into what is now the Discipline Agile Toolkit.
Like we mentioned in the introduction of the interview, the Disciplined Agile Toolkit provides straightforward guidance to help organizations streamline their processes in a content-sensitive manner, providing a solid foundation for business agility. Last year, it was acquired by the Project Management Institute. Can you tell us more about the acquisition process?
Yeah, definitely. So PMI acquired the Discipline Agile organization in August of 2019, and then very soon after purchased the Net Objectives organization for their Flex and for other IP assets. And so why did PMI? Why did we do this now? It was because PMI has also, like the DA organization did. We've also noticed that organizations are applying agile and lean and traditional, often called predictive techniques, and hybrid techniques, of course, as well, and combinations thereof. And that's what attracted PMI to DA, was that DA had a really solid description of what business agility was all about, and how all these good things fit together. And as well as Flex. So Flex filled in a few holes that we had in DA at the time. So we've been combining the two bodies of knowledge, the two toolkits in many ways into one, and also taking advantage of the great stuff that PMI has and continues to evolve. So it's a really wonderful fit for both organizations. And on our side, on the DA side of things, just the reach of PMI and the people involved in our chapters and our just the overall, the PMI organization itself, plus the overall ecosystem that PMI works in and helps to grow, is just phenomenal. It's really helped us to do some good things and continue to do some good things.
Currently, with your position at the PMI, you lead the evolution of the Disciplined Agile Toolkit and evangelize how to apply the toolkit to improve the way of working. How challenging is to be responsible for this segment?
Yeah, so first, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it is a bit challenging. It's also it's a lot of fun. We're all having a great time. So in many ways, I get to do what I was doing before the PMI acquisition. And the wonderful thing is I've been able to build a team of great people, very smart, very Al Shalloway and others. And we're really doing some interesting work in extending and enhancing and defining how organizations can be more agile, more lean, more effective, bringing concepts of flow in. So it is challenging. There are just the merger of DA and Flex together, which was actually a lot smoother than I thought it would be, but and it surprised us all. But that was a little challenging, but most of it is just building up a team. It's the classic: how do we build a team? How do we get communicate what we're doing? How do we bring it to market? So that and that's a lot of fun and very interesting. So we're doing a lot of really good stuff And I get to help lead and grow a great team of people. So it's personally fulfilling as well as professionally fulfilling.
Scott, let us focus our attention of the Agile modeling methodology. You're the
Sure.
practice leader behind the Agile modeling methodology intended for effective modeling and documentation of software-based systems. How
Yeah.
can this methodology serve the software development projects?
Yeah, so agile modeling came out of my work in the modeling space. But so I led a team almost 20 years ago now, and we originally started. It had its genesis in an article that I wrote for software development, where I was explaining how do you approach modeling on an extreme programming project, and this was before the Agile Manifesto was written. And then and that was just a couple of months before, and then the Agile Manifesto came out, and Agile got a lot of attention, and a lot of us started working on this modeling and documentation issue in Agile, because at the time those were radical things. And we basically combined some great ideas from the existing modeling community, which at the time was very traditional and very heavyweight, and we started identifying these at the time phenomenally radical concepts, like most modeling gets done on whiteboards and using post-it notes and paper and index cards. And we take all these things for granted now, but this was this was truly radical. And a lot of the modeling for a good 10 years, the modeling community, the traditional modeling community, really sort of pushed back and didn't believe in this, and couldn't possibly be true that you could do these things. Whereas now, it's very obvious that almost all modeling is done on whiteboards and post-it notes and good stuff like that. So it's really, so for software development and for business in general, it's been phenomenal. The agile modeling techniques have been infused throughout the DA toolkit, as well as in other frameworks too. It's unfortunate that we often don't get the credit that proper credit in some ways, because we really were the first to talk about techniques like big room planning, this big room modeling stuff and big room planning stuff, and this lightweight flexible inclusive modeling techniques that, like I said, are pretty much taken for granted today. But yeah, a lot of good ideas and good stuff there, both in the software world and beyond the software world.
For almost 30 years, you have presented at a wide range of public and corporate conferences around the world, in which you have delivered keynotes, tutorials, workshops, and presentations. During the course of these years, what would you say was the most exciting event in which you have participated?
Well, there's been a few. I think personally for me, probably the most exciting one was my very first international conference in Germany, and that was fun, because it was, first time in Germany, first time in Europe for me, first time in Germany. Didn't really know the culture, didn't know the language, so was just struggling with basic language issues. And here I was presenting in front of many hundreds of people at the time. And then, of course, over the years, sometimes it's been a size of audience issue. Presenting in front of thousands can be a challenging. But then again, too, presenting in front of a handful, 2 or 3 people, can often be even scarier, I find. What's also interesting is was the first PMI Congress that I spoke at. I spoke at one about 10 or 15 years ago, but the most recent one last year in 2019 was a bit scary, because it was immediately after the acquisition of DA by PMI, and we had a lot of attention on us, and it was scary. It was fun. It was great. I met a lot of great people. I spent a week just constantly meeting new people, many of which I knew over the wire, but certainly meeting them for the first time in face to face was very interesting. So, but yeah, public speaking is great, and grew out of my training. I trained. I actually started when I was in university. I was a teaching assistant, so I started learning how to train people there, and then became a professional trainer for a while, and then a public speaker. So a lot of great experiences over the years.
Scott, apart from being co-founder of Disciplined Agile and your role as a keynote speaker, you have published several books and articles. Last year, you have published Choose Your Wow, a disciplined agile delivery handbook for optimizing your way of working. Can you tell us more about the idea behind this book and what can the readers expect from it?
Yeah, so I co-wrote Choose Your Wow with Mark Lyons, who was my business partner, longtime friend and business partner at DA, and now also at PMI. And he's, so we did so basically the Choose Your Wow book is in some ways a handbook. It, the first quarter, so first 100 pages or so describes the DA toolkit and does a summary of it. But the Choose Your Well book is really focused on teams, and there's still a bit of a software flavor to it, but it's certainly applicable to agile marketing teams and non-software development teams as well. But the basic idea is how we show people how do you choose your way of working, how do you go about choosing your wow, and potentially breaking out of method jail, or breaking out of framework prison, as Ivar Jakobsen would like to say, and how do you actually take control and take responsibility for your way of working, for how do you choose your wow. And it's not, there's a lot of hand waving in the agile community about, oh yeah, you're really smart, you can do this, and sure enough you can, but that's hard, and it's slow, and it's failure prone. And with a little bit of advice, with a little bit of guidance, you can dramatically increase your chance and increase your effectiveness at improving the way that you work, that in choosing the right techniques for the situation at hand. Because it's pretty easy to observe that everybody is unique, and every team is unique, and every team faces a unique situation. So you really do need a fit for purpose approach to your way of working. But having said that, even though you're unique, you can still leverage the learnings of others, and this is what we do in the toolkit. And it embodies thousands of years of experiences of various people that we've combined, and we basically put things into context. So instead of telling you this, these are the 17 best practices that you should follow and therefore be pure agile, whatever that means, we instead say these are the issues you need to think about. Here are some options. Here are some techniques that might work for you in your situation. But we don't know we don't know the exact nuances of we don't know you, we don't know the nuances of your situation. So we can't tell you exactly what the best practice is going to be. But what we can do is we can give you some options, and we can give you advice for what the trade-offs are. So that way you can make better choices, you can make better process related decisions, and thereby have a better, a more appropriate way of working for your situation. And then as your situation evolves, you can learn, and you can evolve your approach. So in many ways, it's sort of like a coach in a box. And certainly, experienced agile coaches, tend to love the DA toolkit, and they leverage it all the time. But and even non-coaches do as well, of course. But it really, in many ways, is a coach in a box, and it helps you to make better decisions. And we guide you through this, because there's thousands of practices and strategies out there, agile and lean and traditional. How do you choose between them? When do you do them? When don't you do them? How do they fit together? And these are the sorts of questions that we help you to answer.
Scott, serving the project management community must be a fulfilling profession filled with many challenges. Which project or experience would you say affected your professional life the most?
Well, good question. I've been on a lot, and they've all affected me. I've learned from all of them. Some of them were good learnings, and some of them were, wow, I better not do that again, type learnings. But I think some of the probably the most from a professional point of view, I'll tell you about two. From a professional point of view, the most interesting, or the one that had the biggest effect on me professionally, was a U.S. government program in the mid 90s that for the DoD that I was involved with, and it was very large. Incredible amounts of money were spent on it, and it was an abysmal failure. And it's the old advice that you learn the most from your failures, and I learned a heck of a lot. One of the things I learned there was that the heavyweight techniques, which I was really into at the time, simply didn't work, and or didn't work as advertised, didn't work very well. But they were, they sort of got the job done, but in the end, it was not what the government wanted. And so even though they declared success, it really wasn't. And the people affected by that project were not the happiest of campers, and they had to go on and spend another few $100 million on a brand new thing afterwards. But so that I learned a lot there. And I guess the second was a few years later, and I guess professional again, professional life again, where we applied very lightweight techniques and were very successful. Still had some organizational challenges, of course, you always do, but in many ways the beginnings of agile modeling and our application of these techniques that ended up becoming core to the agile modeling method, and in some cases the agile data method as well, were developed at an insurance company in the United States as well. And that was also a very interesting learning, that the lightweight techniques that some of the, well, at the time, the radical, not quite agile yet, people were talking about. So we were applying extreme programming techniques and, what became agile modeling, a little bit of what Scrum evolved into. And this was more late 90s, pre-agile movement, but still, pretty agile effort.
Thank you for sharing this experience with our listeners. Scott, to conclude, what is your advice for project managers who are striving to succeed in their professional field?
Yeah, so I think several things. First, definitely learn more about Agile and learn how to apply Agile, when to apply Agile, and Lean and traditional and hybrid as well. And if you're not familiar with Agile or just getting into it, I highly suggest taking a look at a short online workshop that we have called The Basics of Discipline Agile. It really excellent and a wonderful overview of what enterprise class Agile really means, and it goes beyond software development. A lot of frustration for project managers, and I hear this all the time, is that Agile is all about software. And certainly it came out of software, but it isn't purely focused on software development. So and we purposely go beyond software development and have examples in there that we work through, scenarios that we work through that have nothing to do with software development. So that, I think, is an attractive thing for you. But also, having said that, also appreciate that software development is critical and DevOps is critical. I think I do run into project managers that are sort of in denial of the fact that a lot of projects are technology focused and are IT focused and about software development and can truly leverage Agile. And even if you work for a construction firm, you've got some IT projects going on as well. So and having said that, even on construction projects, you can still apply Agile techniques. Like certainly Agile on a construction project is very different than Agile on a software development project. So fair enough, but you can always improve. You can always get better. And I think, if I had to leave you with one thing, it's have the desire to learn and to improve and to know that you can always get better. And Discipline Agile will help you do that in the context that you face, and will can provide ideas for you. And because a lot of the time what we find is that you get stuck and you don't know how to, you've got a great toolbox of techniques, but then those techniques aren't working for you, and then suddenly you don't know what to do. You don't know how to react to this changing situation that you find yourself in. Or maybe it's a situation you found yourself in before and you still haven't figured it out. And so the DA, and fair enough, you're only human, but the DA toolkit gives you choices and gives you options and will help you to think outside of the box. And we've run into hundreds of people now that have come up to me and said, wow, I used the toolkit and it gave me this aha moment where it helped me identify this weird strategy I'd never heard of before. And we experimented with it, it worked, and it was amazing, and it's really solved serious problems. And I get that sort of feedback all the time about Discipline Agile. So it's really a wonderful way to up your game. And so always be willing to learn, and have the humility to know that other people have dealt with, whatever situation you're dealing with now, other people have more than likely dealt with it before, so you can leverage their learnings. And so, strive to be agile, strive to be lean, and experiment. always be experimenting. There's nothing wrong with failed experiments as long as you learn from them.
Scott, it was a pleasure talking to you. I believe our community will benefit from our conversation, so thank you for your time.
I hope so. Yeah. Have a great day, everybody.